All right, my little art friends, today we're going to talk about the High Renaissance. This is the later half of the Renaissance, and we're going to talk about two artists in particular, starting with Leonardo da Vinci. Hey, you know what's funny about that? His last name is not da Vinci. That's like where he was from. It means from Vinci, so Leonardo from Vinci. Anyway, here's a couple of paintings he did. The Last Supper. Probably know this one. It's like this guy, and he's got his friends with him, and they're all eating dinner. They're all on one side of the table. Why didn't they sit on this side of the table? You know what happened here at the bottom? There was actually a war, and a bomb hit it, and it blew out a big hole in it, so they had to like cover it up. There was probably a little bit more stuff there at the bottom, like Jesus' feet or something like that. Anyway, that's one of his paintings you might know. Now, let me tell you something. He was always trying new techniques. You know why this looks so cruddy? It's not a bad photograph. It's just like the paint's been falling off the wall for like 500 years because he just didn't do a really good job of like mixing the paints up. He was always trying new things. Here's another painting you might have heard of, the Mona Lisa. You know why she's so famous? Let's take a look at her up close. There she is. Yeah, it's oil painting on wood, by the way. And it's probably like the most famous portrait in the world. But you know why it's famous? It wasn't always famous. At one point, hardly anybody knew it, but it was in the Louvre. Anyway, someone stole it. They were like, hey, let's steal a painting from the Louvre. So they stole it. They stole the Mona Lisa. And then everyone was like, hey, let's put it on the front page of the newspaper. And every day it was on the front page of the newspaper. And people got to see the picture every day. They were like, this is the painting we're looking for. Well, they finally found it and they caught the thief. And he got a year in jail. But they put the painting back and then everyone wanted to see it. And that's why it's really famous. It's not like it's such a great portrait. I mean, I guess it's kind of fun. In the background, it's like this imaginary stuff that's going on. And she's got these weird eyes. But she doesn't have any eyebrows. You know why? Michelangelo. Leonardo could never finish anything. He'd always start things. He could never finish it. He probably worked on this for years. He never finished it. Anyway, here's another piece he did that he did finish. It's a sketch he did in his sketchbook. And it's called Vitruvian Man. And it's supposed to be like how the body works in proportion. So no more man babies. This guy was going to get it right. And he came up with a couple of things to talk about it, like a man's height is 4 cubits and thus 24 palms. Did you know how tall you are? You're 24 palms. Hey, you know what else? You see the arms spread out like from here to here? If you're like, I caught a fish this big, that's how tall you are. That's the same as your height. You can measure yourself. I'm telling you, he came up with all these things. Let's look at another artist. Let's just move on. We'll go look at Michelangelo. Okay, Michelangelo, you probably heard of him. This is one of his earliest pieces. It was a satyr, and he did it. And he had it out in the garden, and like Lorenzo de Medici came over, and he was like, hey, you know what's wrong with this satyr? His teeth are too good. And then Michelangelo snuck back in the garden that night and made his teeth look bad. Because, you know, satyrs would probably be eating like rotten carrots or something like that, and their teeth would get bad. Anyway, here's another piece he did, La Pietà. Now, this means basically the pity, like I feel sorry because my son's dead. That's what's going on here. And it's made out of marble, and it's really cool. Look at it up close. It looks like butter. Now, here's the funny thing about it. One time, Michelangelo, he's always sneaking around, kind of sneaky guy. And like someone came up to him and they were like looking at it and they were like, hey, who did this? And he was listening in, and someone's like, oh, Michelangelo did that. And they were like, nah, Michelangelo could never make that. He's like this young dude. And then so Michelangelo snuck in the middle of the night and he wrote on the sash right there, like basically it says Michelangelo made this. But then later on, he felt bad about it because he felt like he was being prideful. So he said he's never going to sign another piece of work ever again in his whole life. Now, look at the difference here between a man baby, mom and baby Jesus, and the one that, well, I guess he's not a baby, but the proportions were so good. And probably thanks to Leonardo because that whole canon thing he did with Vitruvian Man. All right, here's another work by Michelangelo. It's called the David. And it is that statue of David and Goliath. But in this one, it's different. He's not standing on Goliath's head like we saw with the Donatello. He's just standing there. He's got a sling, and he's got probably got a rock in his hand, and he's about to throw it. Now, this was cool because they put it up in Florence, and like Florence was kind of like this little tiny town, and they were surrounded by all these other people who might have wanted to kick their butt. And they were like, yeah, we might be small, but we're like, David, we can kick your butt. So like everyone dug it. And so now, it's really big, by the way. Look at that. You can see the people standing there. So now, you know, it's really famous, and you probably heard of it. You know what? Another reason it's famous is because it was carved out of stone, and nobody could do it. Like, they were like, hey, can you carve this stone? And a bunch of different artists tried, even Leonardo, and they were like, nah, we ain't going to do it. And Michelangelo was like, no, I can do it. And they said, a piece of marble plus Michelangelo equals the David. Yeah, and here's just the difference between the two Davids, the Donatello one I was talking about before, and the Michelangelo, so you can see the two together. All right, let's talk about one more piece of artwork, kind of famous, the Sistine Chapel. You might have heard about it. Well, it's the ceiling, and Michelangelo spent 4 years painting it, and it's all these really cool pictures, like on the ceiling. Like if you were to look up in the middle, and you could see like each one of these little pieces here is like a little story out of the Bible, basically. Adam and Eve, God created Adam. You can see it's all laid out here, and it looks like that. All right, but some of these paintings are really cool. Like check this one out here. Remember that explosion I was talking about? It's right here on the ceiling. Well, here it is. Michelangelo painted Adam and Eve getting kicked out of the garden. And there's the angel. Look, she's sticking the little knife in his neck. Like, hey, get out of here. And this is a cool thing. The serpent, I like the way he did that. It's pretty cool. Anyway, that expulsion piece. Remember Masaccio did that. Here's the Masaccio one here. Here's the Michelangelo one. I actually kind of like the Masaccio one better because they kind of seem like they're more sad. But I don't know. Maybe you like the Michelangelo one better. Let's move on. Here's some more. You've probably seen this one before. It's also on the Sistine ceiling. More from the Sistine ceiling. Hey, here's the Sistine ceiling. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the Sistine ceiling. It's pretty cool. All right, we're going to stop there. And yeah, so Michelangelo, Leonardo, the High Renaissance. Did you write it all down? You did? Good.